Welcome to How to Be a Person, a podcast about life with me, your host, Giuliano Grimaudo. Hello, Carolyn. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Juliana. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. I know we've been trying to coordinate for a while to get an episode going, so I'm glad we finally made it happen. But I don't know a whole ton about you. You don't know a whole ton about me. We're just meeting each other for the first time. So why don't we both kind of just go ahead and, introduce ourselves a little bit? If you wouldn't mind going first, just explaining a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, thank you. So, who am I and what do I do? Well, professionally speaking, I am a life and leadership coach. You could say an executive coach, but really at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Most good coaches will tell you it doesn't matter what door you enter through,
Yeah.
you're going to be talking about life.
Yes.
And I was drawn to you because of the title of your podcast, How to Be a Person. And I thought, you know what? That is pretty much the subtitle of life coaching is How to
Yes.
Be a Person.
Yeah.
We don't get that manual in school. We learn everything literally, but how to be a person. And then,
Yeah.
we're thrown into the world and told to be a person, and we don't know how to do that. So
So
that's what I
true.
do professionally. It doesn't make me smarter or better or more intelligent or more successful or more wealthy than my clients. As a matter of fact, they're all more of all of those things. But I do have a gift for being able to see what other people's gifts are and to help them
Mm,
really develop those and bring them into the world
I
in
love
a
that.
way that is in service to themselves and others.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love what you said too about how like it doesn't matter what type of coaching you're doing, at the core of it, it's life coaching. I feel like if anyone listening is ever considering becoming a life coach, this is the part about it that I feel like life coaches don't tell you is that you almost can't go at it as just like I'm a life coach because people don't there's this concept in marketing. It's like sell people what they want and give them what they need. So you still give them what they wanted, right? What they bought from you. But the idea is that people really do need life coaching, but nobody thinks they need life coaching. They think
Yes.
they need all these other solutions. And so, like you said, you kind of enter through all these different doors, but ultimately, all coaching is life coaching because like you're like the foundation of having a better life and getting better results with whatever you're in is you are the foundation.
Yes. And it's who you're being as opposed to what you're doing. What you're doing is very, very important. And most coaches stop at the level of doing, at the level
Mm,
of strategies and tactics
mhm.
and even habits. And those are all super important. It's the baseline. You
Yeah.
have to have strategy. Um, you have to learn how to do things, how to negotiate, how to communicate. There is a right way and there's a wrong way. But if you don't go with people to the level of identity, to the level of who they are being,
Mm,
then all of those efforts are really for naught
yeah.
because they don't stick.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think it's exactly what you said. Like there's this this is what's funny too. Everyone wants to know the how. Like they want to know like what is the specific thing I'm supposed to do? And even though the how, I wouldn't say it's not important at all, but it's actually really not that important. Like it's way blown out of proportion how important the how is. It's
Yeah.
exactly what you said. Like who are you being as you approach what you're doing? And
Yeah.
like who you are being as you approach what you're doing is going to affect your outcome like 90% more than focusing on like how you're doing what you're doing.
And I would add to that actually how is very, very important. But if it was the only thing, you could just look at Instagram and you could read books, and there's so much information
Oh
out
yeah.
there already about how
Oh
to
yeah.
do things. There is absolutely nothing I offer in the how department that's new or that you
Yeah.
couldn't get by reading my blogs or being in my community or seeing my videos. It's about it's like how do I build a helicopter? Sure, you can build a helicopter, but if there's nowhere to land it, it's it's no use
Mm,
because you're just going to be in a helicopter up in the air. You have to. So identity is like a landing pad for the helicopter.
mm,
And that is really important work that to create, I think, with someone else. You can't do that by reading more books and being in your
mm.
head about it. That's been my experience.
Yeah, yeah, totally. No, I like that. And I we probably feel differently about the how thing, but what I will say is that like I've heard someone actually, you know who it is? There's this guy named Ian Stanley. He's like an email marketer, but he also talks a lot about mindset and stuff like that. And he always says the how is not for now. Essentially like not worrying about how. And I
Yeah,
think that's really like I think the middle ground between what we're saying
I love
is that
that.
it's not that the how isn't important. It's more just that like the how is easy. It's exactly like you said. It's all there. Like the how is all out there. And if it was about the how, you could just go figure it out on your own right now. Like literally, all the information you need is available in Chat GPT. All the how is right there. You don't need anybody to explain to you how. But like who you are, who like you said, who you're being, your identity as you approach the how is like so insanely important. One thing you said before was about how like we're not taught how to be a person, which is funny because I'm talking about how, but we're
Mhm.
talking about who you're being, right? And that ultimately is why I made this show. I've said this before, but I've driven for Uber and for Lyft for more than a decade, and I would get into the car, or I'm sorry, people would get into my car, and we would have these like amazing conversations, which by the way still happens. I still do it because it's fun, right? And I'm talking to people, and literally like, what was that?
I just said, "Oh wow, what a
Yeah.
platform! What a platform for like really engaging with people when their inhibitions are down."
Yes, yes, and I don't know if you've heard of this before, but someone said that, like, talking to someone and I didn't know this, but this is what I've heard, is that, like, talking to someone in a car, like, is way it's easier to get them to open up because you're not, like, facing each other, which has more of, like, an oppositional type of energy to it as opposed to you're both facing the same direction, and so it feels more of, like, a collaborative thing when you're having a conversation.
Do you know when I learned the truth of this?
What?
In carpool with my kids. You face your
Ah.
child and you say, "How was your day?" "Fine." "What'd you do?" "Nothing." Right? But then your kid is sitting in the car and they're not
Mm.
facing you and it's blah 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 and with each other they talk as if you're not there. So
Yes.
there's a lot of evidence for what you
Yeah.
said. It is true.
Yeah, I love it, and that was my experience, was I was having people get in my car, and we were just having these, like, insanely amazing conversations, and we didn't know each other at all, right? Of
Yeah.
course, they just got in my car, and that's part of the reason why I don't really read too much about the guests that I have on, and I don't share too much. I just like to get to know people and see where the conversation goes, because that's how I've always had these amazing conversations. But besides that inspiring me to have this show, the title, How to Be a Person, for me came from that whole like exactly what you said, where it's like nobody really tells us. Now, don't get me wrong, people try to, right? Like from all different angles of like what you're supposed to do. I mean, especially if you think about like religion, right? Like this is the way, this is the exact way that you're supposed to, what you're supposed to believe and what you're supposed to think. And for me, like I want to be able to take in perspectives of everyone, like people who view things very differently from me, people who view things similarly, right? That maybe help me to like refine what I'm thinking. But the point is that I realized through all those conversations I was having with my passengers that I was getting that, right? I was getting like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I never really thought about it like that. And I don't exactly agree, but I didn't think about it from that way before. And it makes sense. Like I pull this and I pull this. And so my idea behind the show is I'm learning how to be a person. I'm having these conversations. It's something that is recorded for my kids. Like my first son is about to be born in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
And I'm excited for him to be able to listen to these one day, but also for listeners to have that same experience that I had, because I really do feel like having those conversations in my car with the passengers has like resulted in so much personal growth for me. And it's definitely affected my perception of other people. And so the idea is that by having this podcast, I can pull other people into that same experience.
got it. What do you think is the difference between someone like you and another person who's driving Uber or Lyft and is just completely not interested in what's going on?
Well, there's a couple things. Okay, it's funny. I actually just posted a TikTok about this earlier today that like your perception going into an experience is going to affect the quality of the experience. Okay. And I can also say this from like my own experience is that there were times, like I said, I've been doing it for over a decade now. There have been times where I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it to pay the bills. And I was so frustrated, right? And I never wanted to talk to anybody. And I was just like, God, I hate that I have to do this. And I didn't have a great experience during that time. But now I go into it, I'm excited about it, right? I go and I like take pride in like keeping my car clean and providing good service. And now it's like, it's actually kind of crazy. Like so many people tip me and they tip me a lot. But it is anyway. My point is that the way that you view your experience, I believe, has a huge impact on the quality of the experience you have. All of that being said, I believe it's because I'm curious. I am the type of person who, like, when someone says something, I'm immediately like, what do you mean? Wait, what are you talking about? I've never heard that before. Or like, I've never met somebody who did that. And so I just kind of like keep digging and keep asking questions. And I think that's kind of what's gotten me to where I am is I have a genuine curiosity about people, about life, and about everything basically.
Are you somebody who fears many things or worries about things?
um so my gut like reaction to that question is no. Like I go, absolutely
Yeah.
not. No. There's certain things, right, that I like tend to worry about, like like very specific things. But outside of those, it's like for the most part, I'm like, no, I'm the exact opposite. I actually, this is one of the things I tell people too, is because I've taken a lot of what other people would call risks. Like I've tried so many different things, but I don't have a fear of failure. It's just not, I don't care. Right. For me, like the whole point of life is to experience it. Right. So people go, oh man, you have balls doing that. Like I remember when I was single and I would tell someone that I liked them. And then I told one of my friends and they're like, man, you got balls doing that. And I'm like, do I? I didn't. I just am living my life. I don't. How are you? Isn't Are you just supposed to experience life? Isn't that the point?
Do you know why I asked you that question though?
What?
Because I've come to believe that the opposite of fear, which really keeps so many people stuck in life, they come to coaching because they feel stuck. So we
Mm,
do some work and I realize, oh, they're very fearful. And they think the opposite of fear is courage.
yeah.
The opposite of fear is not courage. The opposite of fear is curiosity.
I knew you were going to say that. I love it.
You did, right?
Yeah, I saw it coming a mile away. I love it.
So I set myself up because if you had said, "Oh yeah, I worry all the time. I'm super fearful, but I do it anyway," I would have been like, maybe I need to like rethink my equation here." But I have never been wrong about this. The opposite of fear is curiosity. If
Mm,
I can help people become curious, and for that about whatever it is that they're afraid of, and make that curiosity so important to them, get so curious,
mm,
like I wonder, it would like it's what you said about shifting your perspective. It
mm.
shifts their perspective from themselves. Oh, what if I fail? What if what if she says no to me? What if she thinks I'm a moron? What if she thinks I'm whatever, right? If I
Yeah.
ask her out, to like, hmm, I wonder what would happen if I
Mm,
ask her out. Like, just curious about the thing, the activity that you're
yeah.
fearful of.
You know what that makes me wonder? Okay, because I feel like I have been this way since I was a little kid. Like, if you ask my mom, I was just always like, "Why?
Yeah,
Why?" Right?
it's a
When they would explain something, I was just like, "Why? Tell me more." Wait, I don't understand. Right? And I was just, oh, I've always been that way.
yeah,
But I totally agree with you. Like, I genuinely feel like if I could hand the entire world like one quality that would change the entire world, it would be curiosity. Like,
yeah.
hands down. I totally agree with that. So the question because I feel like it's innate. Okay. I just feel like I am just a curious person.
Yeah.
The question is, you said you try to help people become curious. How do you do that?
So you're absolutely right that it's innate. I From 0 to 10, 0 being like not curious at all, 10 being you. I would say that I was maybe like a 3 or a 4.
Okay.
Then I gave birth to a 10. And you know it when you give it birth to a 10, because
uh,
literally from their first word is why. And if you are not able to satisfy that why with a reason that lands for them, they are doing that thing. Like
Yeah.
just be prepared. They
Yeah.
are doing it behind your back. They're doing it, they are doing that
Mm,
thing. Their
yeah.
curiosity, like no parent is a match for a 10 out of 10 when it comes to being curious. Okay. So
Yeah.
then I had this child, and it's not easy raising a child like that. But then, um, and I would not have wanted it any easier with him. But then at some point, I noticed he was really inspiring me. He had no, he had no fear of failure.
Mm,
Everything was so what? Like he didn't care. It was like, what's the worst that can happen?
yeah.
So he was my coach
Mm,
in that way. I started learning from him. He's 23 now, and I've been learning from him for over a decade.
mhm.
And so that makes me answer your question like this. Yes, we're all born with certain tendencies that are innate, and those tendencies have both a dark side and a positive side, right?
Mm,
The key for each parent is to really be able to help their child find how to work with that gift,
mhm.
right? But curiosity can absolutely can be developed. It is, some people are born better negotiators, some people are born better communicators, some
Yeah.
people are born with a temperament. My daughter, she works in corporate America, like, she just has the right temperament for that world. I did not, you know? But I also didn't have a coach
Mhm.
then to say, it's okay, you don't have the right temperament for it. Let's work on this. Here's some
Mm,
skills you can develop.
yeah.
So this is what really draws me to this work
Yeah.
is helping people understand that practice and personality are two different things.
Mm,
And so often we assume that it's just my personality.
yeah.
Okay, great. You were born with some kind of tendency. It's not it's not a verdict for the rest of your life.
Mm,
Your personality is something you can work with and something you
yeah.
can create.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple things about what you said.
Bring it on.
Um, First of all, what you said about your son being your coach,
Yeah.
um, I love it. And the reason is because I personally believe that like coaching is a separate skill from teaching. Okay.
Mm.
Obviously, right? It's a different word. Okay. But what I'm saying is that a lot of people, when they're looking for someone who's a coach, it reminds me of what you said at the beginning, where you're like, my clients are better than me, smarter than me, wealthier than me, right? And someone be like, well, why would they hire you then? And you go, because I am the coach, right? And when I think of this concept, it makes me think of like all star sports players, right? Like they're not hiring a coach, someone who has like personally gone to the Super Bowl or won XYZ, right? They're hiring someone who can coach them in order to be able to do that thing. And so I'm bringing it up because it was like your son was unknowingly coaching you, right? Because
Yeah.
that was like almost like, my point is that it's a separate skill, but by saying that, it reminds me of like when I'm sitting here thinking, okay, how can I help people to have curiosity? Part of the way you do it is just simply by sharing your own curiosity, right? When just like you, it was like I witnessed my son's curiosity and that made me curious, that
Yes.
inspired me to be curious. And so like if we really want other people to be curious, the best way to do it is simply to share our own curiosity.
Yes, I love that. Like, be an example of it.
Yeah.
People learn from seeing something, not from, being told something. To your point about being a coach versus a teacher, there is a teaching component. I was in
Yes.
a session today where my clients keep butting heads because they don't know how to make agreements. They continue
Yes.
to have expectations of each other. So there was like a I would say at 22, 23 minutes of me being a teacher and saying,
Yes.
this is what a powerful agreement looks like. This is, what an expectation leads to. And these are the 4 steps. These are literally the words you want to use. So, yes, there is a therapeutic component to coaching. There is a teaching component to coaching, but at the heart and at the core of it is people have to know that you understand and you're there with them, and
Yeah.
they should relate to you. So I think, I to your point about curiosity, you're a model for it, okay? Because if I was going to break it down, you're also listening. You must be a good listener, or else people wouldn't be sharing with you. Okay, you would not be
Yeah, good
having
point.
these powerful conversations. You wouldn't be having a podcast. Okay, so how do you make people curious? You share your curiosity, you share your adventures, you listen, and then I think most importantly, you ask good questions. You ask
Mm.
thought-provoking questions that lead to a deeper level of inquiry.
And when this description that you're giving right now of like being a good listener, asking good questions, having curiosity, all those things, are you saying that that is like the foundation of coaching, or you're
I think
saying just to help people build curiosity?
both, both,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because
And I would agree. Like, obviously, you're bringing knowledge. Like you said, teaching, there's definitely a teaching component to it. Like,
yeah,
you're bringing knowledge that maybe the person isn't familiar with. But that coaching itself is this separate skill that's based on listening, asking good questions, being curious, and like almost like modeling curiosity for the person. So they go, oh, that's interesting.
exactly, exactly. And then in
I
coaching,
love
for
that.
me, not all coaches, but for me, because of my age, because of the breadth of experience I've had, I started my own business at 16. I had that for 17 years. I was in corporate America for another 14 years. I built this business in the second half of my life. I've been married, I've been divorced, I was born in another country, we immigrated. There's been so much. There's divorce.
Yeah.
I can I don't hesitate to step out of, well, what do you think? Well, what do you think? Which can happen a lot in like a therapeutic environment, and be like,
Mm.
this is wrong. Like how you're doing this is the wrong way to do this. you know and and also, I mean, you get to a certain point in your life and you realize you can be as open-minded and open-hearted as you want. Some ways are just not good ways to go
Mm.
about being a person.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And and so I will share those things, and it draws a certain kind of client to me, and I'm
Okay.
sure it repels
Can you
some
give me an
others
example? Can you
know
give
of.
me an example?
I work with young people a lot. I work with a lot of young adults,
Okay.
and the main issue many of them have is they're not really stepping into life and taking full responsibility. They're kind of like in their head. So they come from privileged backgrounds. Their parents have given them everything. They've gone to great colleges. They have fantastic education. But now in real life, they are not, they feel stuck. They feel
Mm.
stuck. So when I ask their parents, what do you want for your kid? What is the ultimate aim of coaching that you want for your kid? They say confidence. I want them to have confidence, right? When I talk to the kid, not a kid, like we're talking
Yeah.
25, 28, 32.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. What do you want? They say clarity, clarity. So I will say to that person, for example, I would say, look, there is no such thing as clarity.
Mm.
So I'm not going to have them come into coaching because they're going to get clarity. I'm like, you are not going to get clarity. What you're going to get is the courage to put one foot in front of the other in what is life, which is complete uncertainty all the time. Okay.
Mm.
You're not gonna I don't know if the person that you wanted to give you this job is gonna give you a job. that uncertainty you will have to get used to for the rest of your life. But
Mm,
I'm going to stand here while you pick up that phone and you call them, instead of sending your resume into the ether and then sitting
mm.
back and saying, well, I sent my resume out, nothing happened.
Interesting. You know what that makes me think of is like the word clarity, right? You're just like, I'm trying to get clear. And you use that same word when you talk about someone's vision, like their physical vision.
Hmm.
And it's kind of the same thing, right? Like you need a certain amount of clarity in the sense that like I need to be able to see 10 feet in front of me. And if I'm going a certain speed, like in my car, I need to be able to see a few hundred feet in front of me. But you can't see the whole world, right? And you can't see what's going to happen 20 miles down the road. All you can focus on is and have clarity on is what's immediately in front of you. And that's exactly how life is. Like you can think, oh, I need clarity on this and on this, and you're like, bro, you have no idea what's going to happen around the corner. Like you have no clue what's happening around the corner. Focus on just right now. Focus on what's in front of your face. And it's kind of funny what you said, like you don't need clarity. Like just like you don't need to, okay, let me try to focus on what's in front of me right now. Let me try to focus on what's on the road in front of me. No, it's just there. There is already clarity on that thing.
You're right. You don't need clarity, but you do need courage. And I think good
Yeah,
coaches can lend their courage to their clients until those clients develop their own.
absolutely.
Also, when it comes to confidence, um, I think that parents of my generation, we got it wrong. We thought that
Mm,
if we give everything to our kids and supply them with anything, any kind of aid, service, support that we could offer, that they would feel confident. If we gave them, uh, what are they called? Participation medals,
mm,
they would feel confident. No, you need to win, okay,
mm.
to get a medal. In real life,
Yeah,
in real
sure.
life, there's no participation medals. Like you gotta
Yeah.
like win actually. So now you've raised the kid on participation medals and this like belief that if they just show up, they're gonna be like winning,
Mm,
and it's not happening.
mm,
So they don't have confidence because they confidence is a result of competence. It's a result of taking actions. Someone like you, yes, you had the tendency to be curious, but you know what? Since you were a kid, you did shit, and you realize, oh, okay, I can do this, and I'm not gonna die, and I'm not going to be put in jail. And like,
yep.
maybe I get a slap on the hand, but
Yep.
I'm so happy I did it, right?
Yep.
So you became more confident and more confident, right? But
Yeah.
if you were raised in a bubble and you didn't really take action, and that felt at least a little bit risky, and you were very
Hmm.
much, covered and supported by your parents, in these environments that have been our schools and our colleges the last 20 years, yeah, you come out and you're like, what's going on? I really don't know how to, I don't know how to operate in this environment.
Yeah, that's super interesting because that's what I was thinking. Like when we were talking before about curiosity, right? I think that's what drove me to like make the decisions that I made and try all these different things.
Yeah.
But like what allowed me to do it, if that's the right word, is like you said, confidence that was built over time from doing things, fucking up,
Yeah.
and still being alive afterward.
Yeah.
Right? And that's to me like is the biggest thing is like I think people are afraid of what could go wrong so much so that they just don't do anything, right? It's like sitting in a car and being like, well, I could get into an accident, so I'm just going to sit here. When ultimately it's like you're missing out on this whole massive experience because you're so afraid of what could go wrong. And in my opinion, like confidence comes from doing all of these things and not dying, right? You do all these things, you realize I, I'm actually okay. Right? I'm still here. I'm alive. I'm actually still pretty happy. You know what I mean? And like nothing went as terrible as I thought it could go. And even if it did go really bad, I'm still alive. Right? And like when you do that, you realize, oh, okay. So if that's how everything goes, well then now I'm able to explore my curiosity without fear of what is the word like what are these terrible things that could go wrong. And I mean, that doesn't mean I don't think about stuff like that.
But let's
Of
give
course I
some
do.
credit, though. Let's give some credit to your parents, because when you were younger, even if you didn't realize it, they must have been trying to put in some guardrails. You know
Sure.
what I'm saying? Like I was trying to do for my son. And it challenges you as a parent to put in the guardrails, but still allow that child to have experiences and make mistakes and
Mm,
fall. I'm sure you made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure,
yeah.
as alive as you are, you at your age, you must be looking back, especially at the precipice of becoming a father yourself, and going, holy shit, I'm glad I'm alive. Like, that was a close call. So, that we got to give some credit to your parents for being able to work with you
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. I know my mom
the
put
way
up
you
with a lot from me.
were. Most parents of my generation that raised kids who I now work with, we just took all the risk out of their lives.
Mm,
We completely forget a helicopter parenting. It was snow plowing parenting. It was like, clear the road.
uh,
You know, I didn't do that, not because I wasn't at risk of being that parent, but because the turns that my life took, I was suddenly a single parent. And it was
mm,
just like, I, 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 I just can't. I cannot be working and be at your soccer game and bake cookies and
mm.
be that parent. So, I really asked my kids at a young age to to show up as
Yeah.
adults,
Yeah. Totally.
to
No, I
show up
mean,
as persons.
yeah, yeah. No, it was similar with me. My parents got divorced when I was pretty young, and just because of circumstances, I didn't see my dad a lot, and so there was a lot that I had to take on at a young age. And some of it I can look back and be like, "Oh, that really wasn't fair," because I was a kid, but also I am who I am today because of everything I've ever experienced. And to me, like, see, that's the funny thing when you said like, "Oh, making mistakes." Oh man, I've gotten to this point in my life where I have zero regrets. Like, I can look back and be like, you know what? Like, if I was in that situation right now, I would make a different decision. But in that moment, I
Yes,
believe in the past version of me that I did the best that I knew how with what I knew at the time. Right.
yes,
And so to me, I don't even view them as mistakes because I'm just like, it's every little piece of the story that got me to where I am today, which I fucking love. Right. I love my life right now. And like every little thing that happened between back then and now is exactly what led me here. So, um,
can I ask you a question
yeah,
though?
sure.
This is kind of a spiritual bent
Okay.
for you,
Okay.
right?
Sure. Wait, what?
Isn't that a kind of a spiritual belief
What do you
that
mean?
everything, this absolute belief you have that everything was meant to be what it was, and it was the right thing at the right time, and it got you to where you've gotten to? Is there like a spiritual line there, or not?
So I don't believe that. I don't believe that it was meant to happen that way. I just mean that it did. I just mean looking back, it's like that's exactly what happened. And
Yeah.
if I have appreciation for everything that I have today in this very moment, I have to have appreciation for everything that's happened because
Wow.
that's what led me here. That's all.
Wow. So
I
it's
don't mean that it
actually
was
a
supposed
very,
to happen that way.
it's actually a very rational, way of thinking. That if you're saying, if I'm super happy about where I am, then I've got to accept and appreciate that everything was meant to be as it was. I understand.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly. And I don't believe it was predetermined or that it was supposed to be that way or anything like that. It's just an appreciation for simply what is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it took me a long time to get to that point because I've experienced a lot of things myself. Like I said, my parents were divorced when I was younger. I myself got divorced like pretty young. I got married very young and got divorced, you know, also very young. And now I'm remarried again. And so like I've definitely had my own range of experiences where there were times where I was not happy, you know, in that moment. But that's not the case anymore, you know?
With the depth of experience that you have at such a young age, would you consider building a profession as a professional coach?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that's part of what I'm doing with this podcast. I have I have a book that I wrote called Habit Hacks, and that's specifically about habits, which is like we talked about more of like the
Yeah.
how.
Yeah.
But the idea, how I was saying before, sell people what they want and give them what they need.
Yeah, I
Right. So
feel
I
like,
wrote my book to help people with their habits, but also like this is what I do, you know.
yeah. Yeah, I think you need to take that chocolate covered broccoli to more people.
Well, okay, first of all, I love broccoli, in case you're wondering. Like, it's my favorite food, so it's hilarious you said that. But what do you mean? Like, explain that.
Well, I train coaches,
Oh,
and
okay.
we talk about exactly what you said earlier, which is, people will come to you with something they think they
Mm.
want,
Yeah.
and it's our job to really slow down
Yeah.
and help them receive what
Mm.
they need for their ultimate growth.
Yeah.
So I call that the chocolate covered broccoli. To coaching, if you tell people right off the bat, the first conversation, oh no, that's not what you're going to get.
Exactly. Yep.
You're never
Yep.
going to get a client.
Yep.
And if you don't get a client, you don't have a chance to be of service.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter how good you are, uh, you're not taking that into the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I one of the things I work with my coaches is this concept of the chocolate covered broccoli. You love broccoli. Most people don't. Um, and it's like, okay, how do you really deliver that broccoli in a way
Yeah. Yeah.
that the client receives it and
Yeah.
transforms their life?
Yeah, no, I love that. See, for me, what I kind of envisioned was this was my experience. Okay. So, like, for me, I had zero interest in personal development, personal growth. I just wasn't aware of it, right? I was just living my life.
Mm.
And what led me to personal development, self-help books, all of those things was me going, uh, I want to get in shape. Right. And like, I always say I'm going to do something and then I don't do it. Like, that's so frustrating. I need to build better habits. Right. And if anything, if it says anything, the book Atomic Habits is like the most popular book on Amazon.
Yes.
Right. It's
Yes.
because that's what people think they need. Right. They think I need to figure out how to get better habits because that's what they believe is the bridge to get them where they want to go. And to be honest, like in my book, like I share everything I know about habits. And it's like, I really do believe this will help you with your habits. But in the spirit of what I was talking about, that was my journey. Was I was looking into like, how do I build better habits? How do I get myself to run every day? Because every time I say I'm going to do it, I never do it. Right. And as you start digging into that stuff, there's little breadcrumbs, right, of like identity and self-talk and all these things in these books. And you're like, "Oh, that's interesting." Right. And then you kind of find another book and another book and you dig more and more. And so that I'm essentially offering that same journey to people, right? I believe people think that, well, I need to figure out my habit. It's like, yeah, you do. Yes. but there's this other layer. And I believe if I can sell you what I think, you need or what you think you want, I can also offer you what you need on top of
Mhm. I love that.
that. Thanks. So how long have you been, you said over, or wait, how long have you said you've been coaching?
Over 10 years.
Amazing.
So I might say most of my life because, when you are a leader and an owner of a business, an
Hmm.
entrepreneur, for most of history, it was not called coaching. It was just called leadership, right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was doing it, not perfectly, but I was doing it for many, many years.
Mm.
And then that professional chapter of my life came to an end. And this is something I think a lot of people relate to, which is, you're really good at something, but over time it no longer resonates with you and you don't
Mm.
resonate with them,
Sure.
with that industry. Let's say I was in luxury fashion.
Mm.
So I don't know how much you're into fashion, but I brought Gianni Versace to the United States in 1982
Wow.
and opened his first boutique in Beverly Hills.
Okay.
And after I had that for 17 years, and then for another, I would say 13, 14 years after that, I was working for big brands like Hermes and Gucci and
Oh,
Bulgari.
wow.
And so I just reached a place in my life where I was just like, my God, what am I doing?
Mm.
Like, I get it that I'm good at this, but all of this leadership, all of this goodness, all of this joy that I bring, at the end of the day, what are people left with? A handbag, a jacket,
Mm.
things like that. Now,
Yeah.
I was underestimating what I was bringing to the equation because really I was building relationships
Yeah.
and it was the conversations that
Sure.
was the selling point, but I didn't realize it at that time.
Yeah.
So I had some years of kind of like, um, wandering in the desert of, oh my God, like, how am I going to make a living and who am I going to be now?
Mm,
And that's when I actually hired a coach.
mm.
And in very short order, I knew this is what I wanted to move towards. And it's been about over a decade now that I do
I love
this
that.
full
And
time
so
professionally.
so what is it, because you said it at the beginning, but like what is it that you package your life coaching in? Just like we said, there's it's like at the base is life coaching, but you have to go through a different door. What did you say that yours is packaged as?
Life and leadership coach, is that what
Okay.
you
Okay,
mean?
got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's what I meant. It's kind of like who is it that you specifically are
Yeah.
helping right now?
So when I first started, I was all about packaging. I was like, I mean, I came from a marketing background with some of the biggest brands. So I was like, what's my niche? Who am I helping? And I started with what came easy to me, which was women in their 40s who were, looking at the second half of their lives,
Mm,
and they wanted to build that second half intentionally. Maybe they wanted to create a business, maybe their kids were out of the house and they felt purposeless. You start with what you know yourself.
yeah.
So that's how I started.
Okay.
But soon those women were asking me if I would talk to their husbands and, who were entrepreneurs or
Mm,
CEOs. So then I started drawing my, executive and leadership and business coaching in
mm,
experience into my coaching. Then they would ask, maybe could I talk to their kid? And the kid is like 22 or 24 and just graduated from Harvard. So I realized that basically it's the same concepts, but dressed in different ways depending on what somebody needs,
mm,
and what would be most helpful to them. Like we were saying, all doors lead to the same place, which is, who are you being? Who are you being? And if you
yeah.
think you can be one person at work and one person in your marriage and one person as a parent, you're wrong. You're just wrong. Like, this is
Yeah.
an example. You said, when do you just tell people how it is? This is it.
Yeah.
I will say you're wrong. You
Yeah.
tell me you're good at compartmentalizing, and it's okay that, you are like a real asshole at work because you're really lovely to your wife. I'm telling you, you're not aligned. I'm telling you, when you're two people, one of them is bound to trip the other, and that's coming up for you.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
um, so I realized it's pretty much the same concepts. I mean,
Yeah.
Juliano, you must know that. It's the same concepts, but understanding how to put it in what kind of a context, what analogies to use, how to speak to this person in front of me, this woman, this man, this young adult, so that it lands, so that it inspires them,
Mm,
more than inspires them, it gets them to actually take action,
yeah.
which to me is the biggest difference between coaching and other modalities. Is, are
Mm,
you actually moving into action or not? Because if
mm,
you're not, this is not working.
yeah.
So then what happened was, basically my business very early on became about referrals and renewals. And I
Mm,
really didn't have to focus on marketing or what's my niche or, this is what I do. People started telling other people about me. People, would renew. And that's the model that I actually teach um, my apprentices and my
oh,
mentees,
nice.
is to build a business like that, not through like social media. Social media is great, marketing is great, all of that, but that's on top. That's sort of the cherry on top. What will have you having a prosperous business, sustainable and prosperous long term, is if people are out there talking about you,
Yeah.
really remarking about you and being an example. Like, other people will look at them and say, God, this person is like really changed. And we'll go up to him and say, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And when people benefit, they always talk about it. They say, like, oh,
What are your clients saying about you? That's what I want to know. Like, what are they telling the people that they talk to?
they're saying, I don't know what she does, but we have these conversations, right? And then everything changes. And, she can be she's a truth teller. She'll say it to me. the way nobody else would say it to me. And she has high expectations, and she makes me raise my own expectations of myself. Like I get to work. I go out there and do the work when I'm working with her.
Interesting. I love it. No, it's cool. I've just was curious about what people say, and part of the reason is because I've had so many like I know that I'm going back to this, but like when I was driving Uber, like I have people getting out of my car and they're like, "This was like the best conversation I've ever had in an Uber. I feel so like empowered. I feel like so inspired right now. Like I want to go do something, whatever." Right?
Right? So imagine
Uh,
if that conversation did not end with them getting out of the car.
yeah,
Then you move them into actual strategies, tactics, habits, and they had some homework,
yeah,
and they went into their week with an action plan. Imagine
mm,
that. And
yeah.
then imagine if they paid you for it. Now they had skin in the game.
Yeah, more than just tips.
Now they have paid for it, and now
Mm,
they're like, they hold themselves. Let me tell you something, Juliana. I don't care what anyone says about money. When I work pro bono with people, they don't show up
yep.
the way people who just put their money down
Yeah.
show up.
Have you heard the saying people who pay attention?
No, I love that,
That's
but
the one.
it's so true.
Yep.
It's so
I
true.
learned it a while back and I was like, "Oh man, it's I mean, you experience it for sure." Like cuz I've had a bunch of different businesses and you can tell. It's exactly what you said. When someone is getting something for free, I love giving, okay? I love being generous. But when you get something for free, it is not the same as if you paid for it. And it's not just from me giving things to people, it's also myself. I know when I get something for free, I do not treat it the same as if
Same.
I paid for it. So, like, yeah, I totally agree with that.
And not just if it's free, even if it's very little, you
Mm,
know? I mean, I hired a running coach who has written an amazing book. And I thought, oh my God, this guy, if only he would take me as a client. He, and when I asked him how much he charges so little. And there was a part of me that was like, oh, great. I mean, that's like nothing. And then
yeah.
there was a part of me that was like, wait, something's wrong here.
Mm,
Why is he charging so little? And then it was like a 8 month thing, and I was supposed to report back every month, and I reported back 2 months, and then I didn't,
yep.
Juliano. Just like
Yep.
what you're saying, like it didn't draw out of me as the client, that powerful desire to show up for myself.
Yep.
So when and this is one of the issues I have when I train coaches, because coaches by nature, if you're drawn to this work, you're a giver.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
right? If you're
Yeah.
drawn to this work, you're a giver.
Well, and we all tend to discount what we're good at, what we're naturally good at. We assume everyone else is good at it too. And so we tend to discount and be like,
Right.
it's not, that's just me. It's just me. I shouldn't be able to get paid for that. Yeah.
Exactly. And you love to give. The giving is its own reward.
Oh, yeah.
Then you tell me you want to make a business out of it, you want to make a living out of it, you want to do it professionally, you want to do it full time. And um, they have problems charging until they understand in their bones, not just intellectually, but they really understand this concept that you and I are talking about. People who pay attention.
Yes.
I'm gonna say that
Yeah,
one.
it's funny. You're doing it half for yourself and half for them. It's like, yes, of course, it's great that I get paid well, but also at the same time, it's the it's so funny because I feel like if you don't understand this, it sounds like we're like scamming people. But like the truth of the matter is that like the more the person pays, the more likely they are to get the result that they're paying for. It
Exactly.
just is what it is. Like that's you just look at the numbers. That's how it works.
And I am absolutely a model, evidence for that. My business is evidence for that.
Yeah, yeah. You know what's really interesting? It's funny. So in my book, Habit Hacks, that's actually one of the hacks is put your money where your mouth is. And basically like when you commit to something, committing financially somehow. And obviously there's ways that that can backfire, right? People have bought like, gym equipment and then it just sits in the corner.
Right.
But if you're trying to stack things and make it more likely that you're going to do it, it's like, well, then make it financially painful to not do it, right? Like maybe as an example, someone, okay, it makes me think of like Planet Fitness. Like this is their whole business model is like, we only charge $10 a month and nobody goes, right? If everyone who had a Planet Fitness membership showed up to Planet Fitness at the same time, they wouldn't be able to handle it. There would be a line down the block, right? And like,
Yeah.
that's essentially what it is. But it's a perfect example. People are only paying $10 a month. They don't go. Right. But if you're paying for a personal trainer, how are you going to not show up to that? Right. If you paid like $100 to
Yeah.
spend a half hour with a personal trainer, you're showing up to that, or else you're out $100.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a model for Planet Fitness. Not
You're
one
like,
that's so
applause, Planet Fitness.
right. Yeah, for them.
So one thing I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned it before, was this concept of radical responsibility.
Mm.
Can you talk about it a little bit more?
Radical responsibility is is the concept of, are you willing to take responsibility for everything, absolutely everything that is happening in your life? It's really that simple. And if you are in blame, complaining, then you're not. You're not in radical responsibility. And what I've learned is the biggest difference between adults and grown-ups is this. So it's not how old you are, it's not how much you've done, it's not how much money you've made. You're still, sorry, I didn't mean adults and grown-ups. I meant being a kid and being a grown-up.
Yeah.
Is is are you willing to take radical responsibility?
Mm.
We have 40, 50, and 60-year-old children walking amongst us, you know. Um, the weather is this, today's not a good, I don't feel good because the weather, my partner this. Everything is about something outside of themselves.
Mhm.
And so you can spend your whole life like that. Most people do, and then you die, but you're not going to experience the joys of being really an adult and a grown up, because there are joys that are reserved for grown ups
Mm.
that children don't get to experience. And
Interesting.
radical responsibility is the key that unlocks that door.
It's funny. A part of the reason why that phrase stood out to me is because I was gonna write a book before called Radical Responsibility.
Write it.
Because yeah, no, I'm going to. See, this is part of what I'm building with How to Be a Person is I have a bunch of book ideas in my head that I want to write, and so I'm building an audience of people that will read it. But that whole idea, this is what's really interesting about it. Before you get to the point where you take radical responsibility, right?
Mhm.
I mean, just by definition, you live as a victim, right? Like things
Right?
just happen to you. As a child, that is your life. You are ultimately a victim as a child, right?
Yes.
Things are just happening to you. You have no control over your life, okay? So by definition, you're a victim. But when you transition to responsibility and even radical responsibility, this is what's interesting is most people who living as a victim would be like, so it's my fault that this happened. It's my fault that this happened to me, blah, blah, blah. And here's what's so funny about it. It's like, okay, I'm not saying you're wrong. Okay. I'm not saying you're like, you don't have the right to be upset, but also on the flip side of this, if you're responsible for all the bad things that have happened, then you're also responsible for all the good things that have happened. And you have so much credit to give yourself for all of the good that you've experienced in your life because you're responsible for it. It's like you did stuff to make those good things in your life happen. And you get to take credit for it. And you get to believe in yourself and be like, this is awesome. I'm really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And to put into a chapter in your book, and I think since you're so good at writing books and I'm good at coaching, maybe we should do it together.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Because I seem to have trouble like getting my book out, but you're already past that. So I'm inviting you to write this book with me.
Let's do it.
One chapter would be, you can break down responsibility, take it out of the framework of blame and fault to literally your response ability.
Mm,
We are growing our responsibility. So it doesn't mean that shit doesn't happen all day long. Like,
hmm
I get that. Radical responsibility doesn't mean now you are responsible for everything that's happening. No. Like, there's so many things out of your control that are going to happen. Radical responsibility means how will you are in charge for
Yes.
your responsibility, for how you respond to the situation. That's the life-changing shift.
Yes.
Not just in your head saying, okay, yes, my mantra is I am now radically responsible and everything that happens to me, I take responsibility. No, you know, It's like, you're right. When you're a kid, you don't have control, but now you are able to respond.
Mm.
Okay. And when you were a kid, you didn't have the tools. Maybe you had a tantrum. You know how many people are going through life having tantrums still? I was one of them.
Yeah.
I was one of
Yeah.
them. It worked when I was a kid. Why shouldn't I continue as an
Mm.
adult? Right?
Yep.
That is not how to be a person, to
Yeah, yeah. So,
point.
okay, what's interesting is this whole when you, like the word responsibility, like when you use it in a sentence, you say take responsibility. And I
Mhm.
think that's like my perspective on it. That's essentially what you're doing, right? When something bad happens or when something good happens, you are taking responsibility. You're
Mhm.
saying it is my job to choose how I'm going to respond to this. Just like you said, it's your responsibility, but you're taking it. So it's a choice. It's not, oh, okay, these terrible things happened, it's all my fault, like you said, like blaming yourself. It's like, no, I'm making the choice to take responsibility for what's going on. Me, not again, it's not about blame, but saying now I get to choose, what do I do with this? I get to choose, how do I describe that experience that happened to me? How do I move past it? How do I learn from it? How do I allow it to make me better? How was it possibly a good thing? Is it possible that it was a good thing that I originally viewed
I
as a
mean,
bad thing that happened? Does that make sense?
it makes a lot of sense. I have another word for that though, and that's
Sure.
radical ownership. That's what you're
Mm,
doing. You are the prerequisite for this thing we're talking about called radical responsibility is actually, if you're going to put it the way you just put it, now you're stepping into radical ownership.
mm. Yeah, I see that.
And that's a related but different concept.
Yeah, but yeah, totally, totally.
You and I,
She's like, I hold people accountable. I don't just agree. She's like, I'm going to tell you the truth, Giuliano. This is it in action. This is it in action. That's totally cool. I love it. Like I told you, I like hearing from people who disagree with me. It's actually like one of the things that's made me grow the most. So I love it.
I would say I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I'm adding something for you to consider, uh,
Yeah.
because there are steps to things. Part of coaching, good coaching, is to understand what steps you need to take people through so
Yeah.
that an idea lands. As I'm speaking to you, I'm thinking, oh, interesting. You know, if you're going to accept Giuliano's concept of radical responsibility, then you got to teach people to do what he's doing. He's doing naturally, but doesn't even realize, which is
Mm,
which is at some point he took radical ownership of his life. I don't know when that was or
mm,
how it happened, but but that came before this. It had to,
mm.
based on what you're saying to me. So just
Yeah.
I'm planting seeds to provoke you.
No, I love it. I love it. Um, Carolyn, this has been like a super awesome conversation. I'm so glad that you came on. We definitely have to talk more about how we can collaborate, but
Let's do that.
yeah, but for anybody that's listening that, really resonated with what you're saying and wants to hear from you more and connect with you and learn from you and all that stuff, how would they do so?
Thank you. So the best way, it's really simple. I'm on social media, Instagram and Facebook, not Twitter or anything like that. And it's Carolyn Mahboubi Coach.
Okay. And for
So
anybody that's listening, if you don't know how to spell it, it will be
yes,
it will be in the notes, I promise.
thank you. Thank you. So, and then I have a newsletter. That's
Mm,
I think the best way to learn because it goes to my community. It's
mm.
very targeted for my community. So if you're actually interested in this conversation, then you know that those newsletters will really be beneficial to you. And for that, you just go to my website, carolynmahboubi.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter and you get it once a week in your email. Nothing more, nothing less, just coaching wisdom.
Perfect. Carolyn, thank you so much for coming on. I
Oh,
really
such a
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thank you, Juliano.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great
We'll
day.
talk soon. Take care.
Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who'd appreciate it. For everything I have to offer, visit howtobeaperson.co.